Alright, friends and fellow gamers, in this episode we're going to be talking about how do you ruin a perfectly good MMORPG. Now there's been a lot of examples of this in the past. We're going to choose one of those and we're going to make a big deal out of it. We're also going to be talking about which MMORPGs right now are in danger of taking a big flying nosedive leap off of a cliff and ruining their own game one day at a time. But first, I just want to say, please don't forget to drop a like on this video and remember to join me several times per week for more game-related content. I'd like to give a shout out to everyone helping support and grow this channel, either by subscribing for free or on Patreon for just $1.50 per month. Thank you so much. Alright gang, so how do you ruin perfectly good MMORPG? It's really quite simple, but for today's example we're going to be using a game called Lineage 2. Lineage 2 is one of the best MMORPGs ever made. But if that's the case, why am I coming to you now saying it's the game we're using as an example of what not to do if you don't want to ruin your game? Well, it's really quite simple. Lineage 2 always had a few major defects to the game itself. Number one, the in-game currency, how do I say this kindly, was never thought out very well. As a matter of fact, every time you would kill a monster, it just so happens that the currency inside Lineage 2 is called Adena. The currency was never turned up enough to the point where you could actually afford to buy things inside the marketplace of Lineage 2. Now, Lineage 2, when it first came out, didn't really have an auction house. What it did have is tiered sets of gear that you could buy starting off just by merchants inside major cities. Now, you had D grade, C grade, B grade, A grade, later S grade, and D being the lowest tier. Now, the problem is one piece of gear, just say you wanted to go in, you wanted to buy a chess piece from the merchant in one of the starting cities. That chess piece could have been 200,000 Adena. Now the problem is you could grind all day long, probably for 12 hours when the game first came out, and you might make 10 or 20,000 Adena, and that's on a really long day. Now the second problem is that inside the game itself, there were too many things you had to spend your Adena on to continue to farm. And one of those things was called something called soul shots. Now soul shots made your auto attacks more powerful, so you would end up spending a lot of your Adena on that. Probably I would say about at least half of your Adena on soul shots. So in order to actually save any kind of in-game currency up in Lineage 2, you had to kill mobs without using soul shots, which meant you could maybe kill one at a time before you had to sit down and rest. Now, sitting down and resting in Lineage 2 actually raised your health bar and your MP bar up faster, but not much. It was a very small amount. So basically what you ended up doing is, killing a monster, your health goes all the way down to like 10%, and then you would sit down and rest. Now, you could cure that problem by joining in a group with other players, but then the problem then is you're getting such a small little amount of currency and experience that it really didn't make it worth your time, to be honest with you. I mean, it got so bad to the point where if you were an archer class and you had to buy arrows, you couldn't even afford to buy arrows if you were in a group. You just couldn't afford it because you weren't making enough money to replace your arrows. Now, why are you bringing all this up, Roger? What's the end point? Try to get to the point already. Well, okay, here we go. In order to compensate for the crappy amount of in-game currency that you got while playing Lineage 2, somebody developed something called a bot program. Now, a bot program in Lineage 2 is something that is like a third-party program, and people would run it in the background and it would make your character go around killing mobs. And the problem is those characters, they would take the best hunting spots all the time. You would always find them in an easy hunting spot where their character would do a lot of damage to the mobs, but the mobs wouldn't do a lot of damage to the character. And it got so bad over the years that they had to put a report bot system in the game. And the hilarious part about the whole situation is that the developers of Lineage 2, everyone was 98% sure that they were actually in on it. They were the ones purposely making the lives of certain people who ran bot programs easier than others. And the reason for that is because the main theory behind it was that most of the developers were the ones developing these bot programs and actually selling them to people. And another point is that they were making plenty of money on the cash shop. So what would happen is people would go to a website, they would buy Adena from the website. It could have been $30, $50, $100 for a certain amount of Adena. And the main way that these gold sellers would sell their product is to get in the local chat channels and advertise that you could get a certain amount of Adena for $5, and here's a promotion code, and all this good stuff. All the good stuff that everyone hates about gold farmers and MMORPGs. So why am I bringing this up now? What does this have to do with the fact that MMORPGs nowadays are actually failing? Well, the biggest problem that I see is that the currency inside of these games isn't working properly. And one of the main reasons why the currency isn't working properly in a lot of today's MMORPGs is something called a token. Now, a token, like in World of Warcraft, we call it the WoW token. In EverQuest 2, it's called a chrono. In EVE Online, they call it Plex. And there's a multitude of other MMORPGs out there that have things that are very similar and just like them. Now, if you talk to those gaming developers or you talk to those gaming companies, the first thing they're going to tell you is it's not detrimental to their currency or their marketplace in any way, any form or any situation. But the players will tell you differently. Let's take, for instance, if you go into World of Warcraft right now in the second half of 2021, what you're going to find is that the only things in the marketplace that are actually selling for a lot of money are the items that people want to use for transmog, or the very top tier items that you get from raids that aren't bind on equip, that they can actually put on the marketplace. And the funny thing about it is that all of these items are marked up to such a degree that if you didn't buy a WoW token, you wouldn't be able to afford these items. It would take you weeks, a couple weeks, maybe even a month to farm the amount of gold it would take you to buy one of these really nice transmog items that you want to successfully acquire for your character. And if you went into EVE Online per se, to buy a really top tier battleship, maybe a Marauder class, maybe you're in low sec or high sec and you want to buy something like a carrier, it would take you about 6 months to a year to save up for the amount of ISK, in-game currency in EVE, that it would take to buy a carrier. Now if you just went online and spent $50 to $100 in Plex, you would be able to acquire that carrier in, say, a couple of hours versus a couple of months. Now, which one would you choose to do? Which brings me to my next subject, and that is the cash shop itself. Now, everyone out there knows that if you want to play Black Desert Online, you're going to end up paying about $2,000 or so just to get caught up to the point where you feel like you can compete with other players. You have the in-game pets, you have the 10% bonus that you get from putting on the nice looking armor that you can buy on the cash shop. There's things for your mounts, there's things for everything you can think of, your in-game housing, there's so many things you can spend real money on in Black Desert Online. It's become a smorgasbord for people to pay and spend entire paychecks. Now, when you have players that are, trying to compete against bots and things like that in Lineage 2. And World of Warcraft has their share of bots. Don't get me wrong there. A lot of other MMOs have bots and things like that. The thing that we're concerned about right now, though, is which games in 2021 are actually taking a flying nosedive off of a cliff because they refuse to fix these issues that are wrong with their game. I seriously believe, in my mind, that if Lineage 2 took a serious look at their game and had different developers, they could be one of the most popular MMORPGs even in now, these times in 2021. They have everything they need to succeed. They have a good grinding system, they have really good classes, the combat system's nice, they have raids, they have epic dragons, they have castle sieging and all kinds of different things that make their game really good. The problem is, and always will be, is that the currency in the game is a problem, and that makes nobody want to play it. So again, now in 2021, which MMORPGs right now are at risk of losing a huge amount of player base because they're too stubborn to fix the things that they need to fix? And no one MMORPG stands out more to me than World of Warcraft. And the reason why I'm so worried about WoW is not because, let's face it, Black Desert Online is one of the worst cash shop catastrophes of all time. But it's always been that way. When Black Desert Online first came out, the cash shop was an issue and it just got worse. World of Warcraft, 10 years ago, we didn't have this problem, and now in 2020, 2021, it's really getting to the point where it's rather bad, isn't it? They keep introducing new and new mounts, they keep wanting people to pay for more and more things in the game, like more and more character transfers, and now they have classic World of Warcraft, now they have classic The Burning Crusade. They even charged people to transfer character from Classic to TBC, which was a whole fiasco in itself. I'm sure a lot of you will remember that they even sent out a tweet or whatever saying that they were going to charge people like $40, and then everyone flipped out on them. So it was kind of like they were just testing their toes into the water, so to speak. But, then they keep introducing, if you subscribe for 6 months, we'll give you this special mount. And then they do that for retail World of Warcraft, and they do it for classic World of Warcraft, and then they do it for the Burning Crusade World of Warcraft. And everybody wants to know, when is this going to stop? When is this going to get to the point where the economy inside the game itself just can't handle it anymore? And the WoW token in itself, now, like I said, if you talk to the developers, they're going to deny it. They're going to say, well, we only release tokens based on algorithmic bullcrap they use to try and figure it out. They have a story that makes them smell like sunshine and roses. But the fact of the matter is that people are jumping ship. People see the ship is sinking, and just like rats, they're going to jump off the ship before it sinks and takes them to the bottom of the ocean. Everybody knows that the crafting system in World of Warcraft has been broken for years. Years and years. Crafting inside of World of Warcraft has been completely pointless. And until they start changing the way they're developing the game, it's not going to be much better, is it? And then you have things like what a lot of people like to call paid beta testing, because they introduce things into the game and then they go, oh yeah, well, we'll fix it in the next patch or whatever, and then 3 months later it's still not fixed, and they lose another bunch of players, and then they finally introduce something into the game, and guess what? It's just another something that needs fixed, and it's just an ongoing cycle. Nowadays, when you play an MMORPG, you really have to look at it like, how long is this game going to last in a state that's actually fun for everyone before it starts to take a huge nosedive off the side of a cliff? And that's really just a sad state of affairs that we find ourselves in. It shouldn't be that way. It should be the fact that you're really looking forward to something, because this is the way they designed it to begin with, and let's not change things that people like. Let's just add on to things that people like, and then if it turns out it was a bad idea, just get rid of it, and then you still have a game that people really like to begin with. There's really no need, unless you're really, really greedy, to add things into your game like tokens that people can sell on an auction house for in-game currency. This is just one of the worst ideas I've ever seen happen to MMORPGs in 2 decades. There's a lot of things that we could continue to cover on this subject, but at some point it just feels like you're beating a dead dog to death. All of you guys who have tuned in, I hope you've subscribed to the channel, and if you haven't already, please do so for more game-related content several times per week. I'm sure all of you know that if you leave me a comment and hit that like button, I definitely respond to almost every comment I get. Just know that I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Roger, and I'll see you on the next adventure. Take care of yourself, everybody.